Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday morning, the 6th of February, 2022. It's moving along so quickly. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. Your place to go if we wind up getting another winter weather event in the next couple of weeks. So they've got plenty of rock salt and plenty of other things that, well, they might not be working quite well after the last couple of snow events. If you need a new snow blower, they got them. If you need more mag ice pellets and flakes or pelleto, they got that. They've got spreaders and shovels, and of course, the largest supply at the lowest prices anywhere in the tri-state area of rock salt. So head over to Omni, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, West Babylon, New York, on Long Island, southwest Suffolk County, north of the southern state, north of the Sunrise Highway, but south of the LIE. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. And of course, we all know all too well that the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
which Mr. Rayo
And
does. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
belated happy Weather Person's Day to you.
Yes. Well,
after.
yes. Thank you, and you too. Although I was telling you off air that it was quite a night, technology-wise, website attack, and trying to fix that. And I was up half the night. Then this morning, now I'm trying to get it fixed. I got it mostly fixed, except there's one one last hanging thing which is driving me crazy. And on top of all of that, I got a boo boo, Joe. I don't know if you can see
A
my. I
boo-boo.
got a boo boo. Yeah, I uh, I was cutting. They wrap things up with so much plastic and so much and these twist ties and I bought some stuff, a little farm set from Tractor Supply yesterday to put it on my trains, and I'm trying to cut open the twister tie, which tied so close to the box, and I wound up clipping the top of my finger with the scissor,
Oh.
and it hurts like hell. Oh my God, my surgery didn't hurt as
Oh.
much as this thing did. Then here's another thing. You and I both remember. You and I go back and remember the day when you would put a band-aid on for getting a cut, and you would absolutely dread. I mean, dread the day that that band-aid was coming off because it was glued tight to your skin, and your mother would probably rip it
Right.
off. Okay. Well, the problem now with these things, it's just the opposite. They don't stick. They don't stick to your skin. And then they've got these Band-Aid with Neosporin, which is, great because it's a disinfectant. That doesn't stick at all. It's useless. So anyway, I'm ranting here. I'm ranting. So
All right. Well,
anyhow, that's the
it's
extent of my day. It
it's
has not been a good start to the
well,
day. Let's put it that way.
welcome to the 21st century. And if 100 years ago you had mentioned your problems that you mentioned to me off air and alluded to here just a few moments ago to somebody 100 years ago, they would have no clue as to what you're talking about. And I'm sure that 100 years from now, one of our descendants will probably have a problem which we know nothing about or can possibly understand. But each generation has its own problems and always yearns for a kinder and gentler time, as you just mentioned a few moments ago concerning band-aids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, make them stick at least, for God's sake. I want them to stick. I don't want them to uh, not stick, you know. Anyway, uh, so like I said, this is like the extent of my. This is what I'm going through right now, and it's not fun. It's just simply not fun.
Well,
Ugh.
if, just to just place before everybody on the chat board, because of all the problems that you've encountered and the fact that your head is spinning or whatever, you had suggested that we make this a relatively short Joe and Joe, so that you can at least get some time to frolic outside with your wonderful companion JJ, and then after taking a couple of deep breaths, go back inside and try to recover that last page from your website, which you're still having trouble in
Right.
getting now.
It's just the home page of my app. The rest of the app works fine, but the home page doesn't. I can bypass that for now, but it's going to bother me until we get it fixed. All right. Well,
I know.
yeah.
I understand.
Anyhow, now where did that go? Everything's a mess. All right, let's get to some maps going. I got a couple of things I want to touch upon today, including the long range. And first off, except for some, and it's about time actually. Except for some wind issues up in Montana, there isn't a watch or warning up everywhere. Okay, dense fog advisories in Washington and Oregon. Oh, there's breaking news, but that's it. It's just absolutely quiet, and not unusual, by the way. And I'm going to explain that momentarily. Also, why don't we check the radar and see what's going on there? And there is here also not a whole lot happening. If you remember how loaded the radar was last week with that stalled frontal boundary, which, by the way, Joe, wound up surprising in a slightly different way because the front slowed down to the point where one last extra wave got to develop, and places along the coast that we thought were going to get into icing earlier in the day wound up waiting till mid to late afternoon, and then there was precip at night, so they got a coating of ice, and on top of that, they got a coating to a half an inch of snow over parts of Long Island and coastal New Jersey. So they sort of made it up on the back end, but got thrown a little bit of a curveball with that at the last minute. But meanwhile, even on the radar, there's a little bit of light snow activity. Most of that's aloft, that's around the Great Lakes. We've got some showers off the southeast coast. There are a couple of weak little lows that are going to be moving out of there. One today that's just going to fall apart, and then a second one on Tuesday. Then there's another one in the Gulf of Mexico later on Tuesday. All of those are we're going to get clipped, Joe. I put in some rain in the forecast for late tomorrow night, coastal New Jersey, Long Island, and into New England. It looks like the coast will get clipped, maybe a little bit further inland, but the rainfall amounts really don't amount to much.
Yeah, and you talked a few moments ago about being thrown a curve. Let me tell you my story yesterday. Now, if you remember the forecast for Saturday, in the wake of all the mayhem that we had thrown at us on Thursday night, Friday, the forecast for Saturday was for basically a few lingering clouds through about mid-morning, and then becoming bright and sunny, beautifully sunny and clear through the remainder of the day, from late morning through the afternoon.
And that didn't happen.
My daughter spent a couple of days with us, and she said that she had all intentions of leaving here around mid-afternoon, say 3, 4, 5 o'clock or whatever. She comes downstairs to say goodbye, and she says, "Oh, by the way, have you looked out the window?" And I looked out the window, and I was stunned. We had the skies were gray and dark, and we had steady light snow. And I'm saying, what the heck is this all about? I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself that this is going to be a bright, sunny afternoon. It's going to be a clear, cold night. And it's snowing, for goodness sake. And not only that, since it's so cold out there, the snow is beginning to stick. My driveway, which had ice on it and sleet from the previous day, and that melted off, all of a sudden now is accumulating a light coating of snow. I look on the radar, Joe, and it looked like there was a batch of snow that developed literally right over my house and then stretched on a narrow line to the south and east.
Don't you love
across
that?
Westchester County. I mean, and I'm saying to myself, where the heck did this? And I said, all right, this isn't going to last very long. And it was like hour after hour after hour. I'm saying to myself, what the heck? How, and what's generating this? Renata said, maybe this is some kind of micro scale event where the winds are blowing across the Hudson River. We have a lake that's 2 or 3 blocks up from where I live called Lake Oscawana. I said, no, this is the lake effect. This is the winds interacting with Lake Oscawana and causing this. I still, to this moment, do not know what this was, but it was a real, you talk about micro scale. This was a micro scale event yesterday in the afternoon. Many of you yesterday afternoon may very well have had sunny or partly sunny conditions, but if you were anywhere along a line from Putnam Valley diagonally stretching south and east across northern and central Westchester on maybe touching the extreme southwest part of Connecticut, if you were anywhere along that line, you saw snow and you saw light accumulating snow. The Weather Service, I thought, and you talk about, doing again, that is not taking a shot at the Weather Service, but just a little annoyed. I said, I got to see what the 5 o'clock or the late afternoon forecast is for the National Weather Service. And I figured that, all right, for everybody, they were saying mostly clear, but maybe, just maybe for Putnam County and for parts of Westchester, they said any snow flurries ending followed by, because that would have been valid. No, they just went mostly clear. And I'm looking out the window at like 6 o'clock or whatever. And I said, yeah, that's mostly clear. All right. Still some tiny flurries fluttering on down. It was really a weird scenario. And this morning I wake up and it's nice and sunny, a few thin high clouds, and hopefully less of a problem out there today as opposed to these last couple of days.
Well, on Long Island, that sort of stuff used to happen from time to time, depending on the wind direction. Off the sound, and if there was an Arctic air mass and you had the right wind, usually a north wind or a northeast, sometimes northwest, there was no rhyme or reason to it. You tried to figure out. It's hard to figure out, but usually when you're fairly deep in an Arctic air mass, you'd get these snow showers that would come in off the sound, and I happened to be kind of always in line, in the right spot. Because that's 20 miles to go from one side to the other. So there's some space there. And the tops on these things were very, very low. So half the time they would show up on the radar as just these little specks. And meanwhile, you'd have the ground whiten. Sometimes you could even get a half an inch, or even on occasion, I can remember a couple of times when we got an inch or so out of it. But no, I understand, and I get it. And the chairman is back.
And I see also that, and I also see on the chat board there are a number of people who are. I said that to my wife in jest. Maybe it's lake effect from Lake Oscawana. Yeah, and all these people are saying, impossible, Joe Rayo. The lake should be frozen, or the lake is probably frozen, Joe. I mean, I said that in jest, and yet I guess I must have such a high credibility that people actually were thinking that, yeah, Joe Rayo was actually saying something based upon fact or something that may have happened. Of course, it's frozen. Of course, it could be lake effect. But I'm just, It's very, very funny.
Yeah.
And congratulations to the chairman coming back and is with us today.
Yeah, taking care of his mom. We wish them both well and all the best. And also the chairman hitting the tip jar today, which is very nice. Thank you for doing that. Hitting the super chat tip jar. And we'll probably have Briller Jeopardy started back tomorrow, I guess. But whenever Scott gets around to it, because he's got things to do, and that's fine. Okay, so let's run along here. I brought the U.S. satellite loop up here somewhere, and we could take a look and verify that Joe is indeed partly to mostly sunny, which would be nice. By the way, I had some light snow here Friday night. And it didn't even, you could see it. It could barely, there were patches on the deck here and there, very little. But the mountains above 3,000 feet were completely snow covered. And I was on the edge of these snow showers. It was mostly the east facing slopes that got it. The west facing slopes and the north and the south did not. The east facing slopes got it. So I'm still trying to figure out how that works down here, the local climate. But looking at the satellite, yeah, it's nice and clear for the most part. Just some high clouds here and there. You've got clouds off the southeast coast, going into southern Georgia and South Carolina, and even into coastal North Carolina. Seeing also some clouds in the western Gulf and on up into the northern plains. The rest of the country's doing quite well. Places that got a lot of ice from Texas northeastward, maybe doing a little bit of melting over the last couple of days, which is a good thing because they had quite a bit of it from that stalled frontal boundary. And on that note, there's the whole week pretty much is going to be on the quiet side. I just want to jump on the long range because everybody is already focused on on two things. One is the occasional runs of the models showing another big storm for Valentine's Day, and of course, we were talking about that day, Joe, that date period around the 11th and 12th to about the 14th, 15th. There's a window because we saw it last week on some of the long range ensembles and a few other things, and it sort of made sense. But I want to bring up then the other thing that they're talking about, and I've saw a few people on the chat board comment because they've already decided that after that happens, it's not going to ever snow again for the rest of the winter in the New York area. I don't know how, I don't understand how people can make these unequivocal statements. And I will just tell you this. 2 weeks ago, I was told that the ridge was going to go in the east and the trough was going to go in the west right around the 1st of February. Well, it isn't there yet, and here we are at the 6th. So that unequivocal statement didn't happen. So if you're doing weather, it's a real smart thing to just kind of hedge yourself, because we've already seen one instance where the models threw a bit of a curveball with that last storm as it rearranged the pattern in Canada and has kind of kept things going the way they are. But I want to look at this at the broad sense, and I wrote a piece about this on my weather platform on Patreon, and if I feel happy today, I might actually release it and open it up to everybody, Joe. But this is what's happened in the last couple of months, and it seems to be driven by the Pacific North America Index, or the PNA, which it's one of those teleconnections. They measure pressure changes around in the northern hemisphere, and those changes in pressure lead to positive and negative values. And when we have a positive value in the PNA, we wind up with generally troughing in the east, which is a colder, occasionally could be also a stormier look, and a ridge in the west. That's when the PNA is positive. I don't know if I misspoke there. If the PNA is positive, if the PNA is negative, it's the opposite. We have a ridge in the east, which tends to be warm, and in some cases it could be warm and dry. It could be warm and wet, depending on other things that are going on. And also the trough is in the west, and that's what we had in December. Now, I've identified 3 critical points here that have occurred. Okay, one was right around December 8th or right around the 9th or the 10th of December. The PNA, the Pacific North America Index, which spent a good chunk of the month of November kind of straddling the neutral line. It was positive at the beginning of the month and positive at the end of the month. It went negative. So that was the first pattern change. And of course, we know what happened during the month of December. This was around December the 10th or so. So the last few weeks of the month of December were warm, carried us right through Christmas. Then right around New Year's, just after New Year's, the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, began to rise. And at about around the 7th or 8th, it went to the neutral line, and then it's gone positive, and it's been positive ever since. Now, it's forecasted. This was yesterday's forecast. I don't know what today's looks like. I imagine it's going to look the same. But the next change in the Pacific North America Index was forecast to occur around the 15th, 16th, where we start to see those members go from the positive line down to the neutral line, actually probably a couple of days after the 16th. So those are the 3 points. I've got a question mark on the one at the end that may be upcoming, because A, it's 2 weeks away and we don't know that it's going to verify, because after all, as I said just a few weeks ago, it was doing the same thing for the end of January and the beginning of February, and that has obviously gotten pushed back and delayed. So the question mark there is also for the fact that we don't know what's going to happen around the 13th, 14th, 15th time period. If the models are correct on making a bigger storm, we'll have the same thing happen, Joe, where that storm goes up into Canada and rearranges the pieces up there a bit and maybe slows this, because eventually it's going to change. It has to change. We're a good 5-6 weeks into it. Most patterns usually last 6 or 7 weeks, and then they change because the atmosphere runs out of steam and has to go to something different. And that's just reality. It's rare to see a pattern hold on for longer than that. Every once in a while, you do see it last for maybe 9 weeks, 10 weeks, outside chance maybe even up to 3 months. But most of the time, it's inside that window of 6 to 8 weeks. So uh, that's that I think is probably the best way to look at this. I think as far as the long range is concerned, and let me run through real quick. We'll get the new GFS out because I haven't seen it. So we're going to take a look at this and see what's going on. And here
Well, after December, after a December that, as you just pointed out, was actually at Central Park. December was the third mildest December on record. The first 2 days of January, carrying over from what we saw during December, the first 2 days of January of this year, 2022, saw a continuation of these mild conditions. Here, not too far from me, there is a cooperative weather observer apparently at Shrub Oak in northern Westchester who reported temperatures the first 2 days of January in the low to mid 50s. Mm-hmm. In fact, at Central Park, the high on New Year's Day was 56. The next day was 59. But then all of a sudden, as you point out, Joe, the jet stream shifted. Winter-like conditions arrived, and the rest of January became the coldest January since 2015. That's a full 7 years ago. At 3.4 degrees colder than average, it was the most below average of any month in more than 2 years since November of 2019, which was 4.1 degrees below average. So if you subtract the first 2 days of the month, which were 16 degrees milder than average, the rest of January was 4.5 degrees below average. So that big flip that took place after the 2nd of January, and now, as you just mentioned, the illusion that maybe by the middle of this month, we'll flip back to milder conditions, although from what I saw on that chart that you just showed, there was a lot of scatter. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That may very well be delayed until later on in February, or then again, it may very well come very quickly. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. There has been some on the GFS, and we'll see it right now on the latest run, that some kind of a coastal system would be influencing adversely the Atlantic seaboard sometime around Valentine's Day. And maybe that is the tool, so to speak, to switch everything around to a more tepid or milder weather pattern.
It could very well be. So we don't know. Clearly, on the recent runs, the absence of any storm is called, the pattern is changing. The pattern wants to change in the long term, in theory. We don't know. We've only had a couple of runs where a bigger storm is indicated, and we don't know what that's going to do. In fact, we're in this, what I call this funny time frame with the models where storms appear in the long range, then they disappear, or they pop up back and forth. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I brought up yesterday's. What is uncanny to me, and this is going into Tuesday. Now, this first trough with the Monday system, there's nothing out in the Atlantic to force this low to climb further west. So at best, there'll be a clipping of precip near the coast. The trough is positively tilted. The low is starting out off the Florida-Georgia coast, so it's going to run out northeast, well, to the south and east, and it might bring maybe a bit more precip up into parts of New England, and in some places it'll be cold enough for snow. We're losing the cold air here, and there's no intensity. There's no deep upper feature. If we had a deep upper low or a low trying to cut off, we might get some do-it-yourself cold air. That's not happening, so that's going out. We've got another trough with a cold front at the end of the week. Okay, so that goes through, and there's not going to be much with that. Now, here's where it gets very interesting, is that at least on some of the runs that have showed storminess, this is almost what we went through back last Friday night, Saturday.
Right.
Deep southern shortwave, northern stream, negatively tilted. Let's make a cutoff. This looks, Joe, almost identical to the system on the 28th and the 29th. Or whatever the dates were, the 28th, 29th, I believe. I mean, really, look at that. That's if we go back and look at the maps going back there. If you look on my website with some of the posts I did on meteorologistjoechaffee.com, which is the free website, you can find the old posts and match up these maps, and it's almost perfect in terms of uh, what we have. Now that this run was yesterday's, okay, and just to kind of show you what it did at the surface in case you missed it, this was the 18Z run yesterday. There were scattered runs the last couple of days where it was there, then it was not there, and the European was going along with this. There even the track of the surface low with the extension out to the east and the stretched isobars are all still there. So just like the last time, and then it runs out to the east northeast. Now, of course, we're seeing the models grasping onto a slightly different idea, and that is the same thing that we struggled with when we were dealing with the storm from the 28th, 29th, and that is that if we look at the last few runs, instead of having this very sharp, negatively tilted trough, you've got a faster, weaker, much more progressive system that doesn't sharpen up until it's way out, way out to the east, at least on the GFS. The European was trying to hold on a bit to the idea that it would sharpen more toward the coast on the overnight runs after making a big storm yesterday. So where we're at with this, in my view, is again, we're in that funny midpoint in the model cycle where it likes to lose things. It can't seem to handle all the things that are going on, and it comes up with these different solutions, which I think are all perfect. It's a reasonable solution that it would be flatter. But here's how I look at it. I don't care what the run does this afternoon. I don't if it's there or if it's not there. I'm going to just say the same thing I said 10 days before the last one. If the models all have it on Tuesday, I will start to get interested. If they all have it on Wednesday, then I will get even more interested. But until then, it's just pure speculation. And people, if you see clown maps up on Ragebook and Blither, right, over the next day or two, it's because a run must have done something, and the clown maps immediately appear, but from the usual suspects. And I want to read something, right. And I want to read something to you, as I just because I always say how things rhyme when you're in a pattern. They tend to repeat in a similar fashion. I mean, they may not exactly be the same. But I kind of outlined, Joe, in dates yesterday what's happened as we move through the month of January, and I just want to go through it with you because this way you can see the parallel. Because I'm trying to draw a parallel to where we are now. Let me just find that post. Where is it? There we go. So it'll be up there in a sec. I'll have it up here in a second. But what I did was I went and I got all the dates of everything that's happened here since January, and it's kind of interesting because the parallels from the period to period that we've dealt with are really the same. So here's the date sequence. January 3rd, 4th, major snowstorm for the southeast and mid-Atlantic states, including southern New Jersey. You remember that, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's when you had that, the dry air coming down and cut off the snow in central Jersey, and that worked out perfectly in terms of what you were forecasting. I remember that clearly. January 7th and 8th, the first snow for New York City. Accumulating snow, the 5 inches, and it was, some places got 7 or 8, some places got less. January 11th, Arctic front passes, little snow after a forecast of maybe a coating to a few inches. January 16th, 17th, major storm, Tennessee Valley, interior mid-Atlantic, interior northeast. That was the low that went up just inland of the coast. Now that was followed by a quiet period from January 19th through the 25th, where a series of storms passed off the U.S. southeast coast. Models generally show no storms, and in general, models were showing no storms for 16 days. Okay, which I always say is bullish because when it doesn't show it, the chances of us going 2 weeks plus without getting anything at all are very, very low. So that quiet,
Minuscule.
right, that quiet period with those weak storms moving out of the Gulf and then moving off the coast well offshore was followed by the January 28th major storm with blizzard conditions, coastal North Mid-Atlantic and coastal New England. Okay. That was followed by the Arctic front a few days ago, and this one produced major snow and ice from Texas to New England. Okay. Models now, we're at February 5th and 6th. Models now taking a series of weak storms off the southeast coast and then indicating something more important in the 13th, 14th time frame. This is the third time that we're repeating basically the same pattern since the beginning of January. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to finish the same way because there are other changes that could be underway in the West that might prevent this. But you see where I'm going with this. We're just basically doing the same thing. So if we wind up with something around Valentine's Day, it should be a shock to no one.
Right, and you have not yet brought up the latest 12Z run of the GFS.
Oh,
but
yeah.
As per what you
go ahead, I'll bring it up and you talk about it.
Said, well, per what you just said, is that basically it has lost it for the moment.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be lost forever or it's going to remain that way, because if everything plays out the way it has been through recent weeks, all of a sudden about Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, the model, the GFS, may very well say, hey, remember that system I was talking about a week ago that I totally forgot about? Guess what? It's back. And we'll see whether or not that indeed pans out for this upcoming week, whether or not we do get a return of that. Because right now, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of anything occurring late next weekend into the start of next week, which the 14th, Monday, is Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, because we're in the same place that we were a week or more prior to it. We're in that window. I can see how it happens. If we wind up with a progressive upper air that's flat and positively tilted, no, then it's going to be out. It'll be a simple cold front here, and who cares? But if it's like it showed yesterday, where the trough axis was much further west, very sharp, going negative, or something like that. It doesn't have to be exact. Then it'll be a different story, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to get interested in it, I should say. I'm not going to be interested in it until we get to Tuesday. If it's there on Tuesday, talk to me. If it's there on Wednesday, really talk to me. But until then, we're just playing run. What's the next run going to do the game? And I'm tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so I'm tired.
I was listening. By the way, I was listening to you. Some of the people watching me on camera, Renata stuck her head in the door, and she again was pointing to my light and saying, "It's much too bright. It's much too glary. Your face looks white." And I didn't even notice that, but it was on a different setting. And so while you were talking, I was listening to you while I was playing with the settings, and now supposedly everything is more normal. That I don't have as white a face as I did.
You look fabulous. We had another super chat hit.
Thank you.
Did you catch it? We had Scott, but
so far we
got one
more.
Have
the chairman on my list, and Paul Roman. And let's see, Paul Roman and that's all.
And the chairman, Scott Briller. That's it. Paul.
Right.
Oh,
right.
okay. Thank you, Paul. Most appreciated. Most appreciated. By the way, if you want to read more about that, if you're on Patreon and you haven't been on since yesterday, I've got the link up pinned at the top of the chat board, so you can head over there. And if you're not on Patreon, well, maybe you should be, because it's only $2 a month, and you get a lot of weather there.
William Huber brings up the fact, he was asking me, he says, Joe R., didn't the NAM lose the blizzard 2 days before the storm? Had it going way out to the east?
Yes, it did. Yeah,
but that was number one. That was the 18Z, the intermediate, which I never really had much faith in, the 6 and the 18Z maps. And number two, the NAM with the blizzard was kind of schizo, if you will. I mean, first, it would either bomb us out or would give us nothing. And then, and incidentally, there was a discrepancy between the 12-kilometer NAM and the 3-kilometer NAM as to exactly what we were getting. The NAM, I have to say, over the last year or two with Winter Systems, has really done a great job. In fact, in some cases, better than the GFS. But this most recent storm, the blizzard, this was the one that the NAM had a lot of trouble with. There was no consistency. And there was one night, Joe, that Lee Goldberg and Nick Gregory and I think one other, I forget, I think I may have been on Channel 4. They all, we were within 2 days of the storm. The NAM came out with nothing on that 18Z run, and all of them said the same thing. We're going to hold off on showing you a snow map until we get more data. I think as soon as they saw that from the NAM, they said, oh my goodness, what are we? We're playing a big storm up, and this now all of a sudden says we're not going to get it, and they just stopped and they just took a deep breath and waited. And of course, we saw later on that the data from all the other models kind of overruled the NAM.
Yeah,
and
the word for what happened before the storm last week was squirrely. That was a very, very squirrely run that occurred. And I've seen that the NAM has been throwing squirrely runs from time to time over the last couple of weeks. Was it Alfred Phillips who was on today from Wainwright, right, Alaska? Always good to see you, sir. And he says Greenland high pressure heading to New York City. Well, the NAO lovers would love to see that. However, I also pointed out in that piece I wrote that all through this, by the way, all through this period we've been in, the NAO has been positive. So, there goes the argument. I have said this many times. Give me a negative East Pacific oscillation, and I will take my chances with the other two. The NAO has been a non-factor. And by the way, the NAO is going to remain on a flat line, slightly positive, at least from the last forecast I saw of the teleconnections for the next couple of weeks. So you know what? Nothing's changed. It's the same thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll be back. We'll be here tomorrow night, and we'll look at it, and we'll see what the deal is. And if we wind up seeing something, that's fine. And if not, we'll just move on. But again, if it's up there on Tuesday, I'll get more interested in Wednesday. I'll get interested in Wednesday. I'll get even more interested if that's the case. Okay. So you know what? It's 1:45. By the way, I don't know. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, so I got all my movies. I have to watch all these movies and vote on who I want for Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress. I think I got I got 15 of them. Yeah, I'll start working on the 2016 ones because I think maybe I've watched like a couple of these. It's a lot. I don't know how you're supposed to get through all of this, but anyway, I'll be sending my votes in. I'll try to watch some key scenes on each one and come up with something.
The chairman wants to know about my opinion about the movie Moonfall. I've heard about this movie. It's made by the same guy who came up with the movie Independence Day and also 2012. I mean, a disaster type movie. Supposedly, in this particular movie, the moon breaks out of its orbit and starts heading or falling toward the Earth. And that's about all I know about this movie. I rarely ever get a chance to actually. I can't even remember the last movie that I think the last movie that I saw with my wife was Gone Girl. And how many years ago was that? I do not see movies often or frequently, so I certainly have not seen Moonfall. And maybe when it comes to cable, I'll finally watch it. But the fact is, Scott and everybody, that the moon actually is moving away from the Earth in its orbit. It's moving at the rate of about 5 feet per century. It's moving away. Eventually, it's going to get out to about 340,000 miles. Eventually, millions of years from now, it's going to get so far from the Earth that total eclipses of the sun will not be able to happen anymore because the apparent size of the moon will be too small to cover the sun completely. And then supposedly it will stop moving away and start coming back in toward the Earth. And millions or billions of years from now, it's going to get to a point where it's going to get so close. There's something called Roche's limit, where the moon is going to get to a point, something like 10 or 20,000 miles from the Earth. And before it has a chance to collide with the Earth, which is, I think, what the premise is of this movie, Moonfall, before any of that happens, it'll enter Roche's limit, and Earth's gravitational pull will rip the moon to shreds. And, many millions or billions of years from now, the Earth will look like the planet Saturn with a ring around it, the remnants of what was once our nearest neighbor in space, the moon. So, again, I have not seen Moonfall, Scott, because he was asking my opinion of it, but it sounds like a typical insipid early 21st century disaster movie made to scare the living daylights out of you, which means absolutely nothing in the end.
Leon Fredritsky hitting super chat. Thank you, Leon. Was working hard in his kitchen. I saw your video yesterday. So anyhow, you know what? Time to go. So it's 11:45. Go enjoy the nice weather while we have it. And if you got still have some ice to chip through. This might be not a bad time as temperatures get into the 30s today over much of the tri-state area, much of the rest of the country. Weather's pretty quiet, which is not unusual after we've had a couple of big events. The atmosphere has to kind of exhale and relax a little bit. That I think is what we're going to be seeing for the week. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. So have a great day. See you later.
Bye. Bye.